The film begins with a flashback showing Tessa's mother, Carol, forcing her father, Richard, to leave their home due to his alcoholism and job loss. Young Tessa tries to stop him, but Richard leaves anyway. In the present, Tessa and Hardin find Richard living on the streets and decide to bring him back home. The reunion is touching, with Richard expressing his joy at seeing Tessa again. During dinner, they share a pleasant conversation, and Richard compliments Tessa's cooking, saying it reminds him of Carol's. He reveals that he tried to contact Tessa and sent her gifts, but believes Carol kept her unaware. Hardin is skeptical of Richard, especially after some rude remarks at dinner. Tessa privately asks Hardin to support her in giving her father another chance. Hardin admits his doubts, but ultimately respects Tessa's wishes. Later, Hardin offers Richard money, suspecting he might have ulterior motives, but Richard declines, expressing his genuine desire to rebuild his relationship with Tessa. He acknowledges Hardin's concerns, but asks for a chance. Tessa discusses her plans to move to Seattle with Landon, Hardin's stepbrother, in a park. Hardin overhears part of their conversation, realizing that Landon knows more about Tessa's plans than he does. When Landon leaves, Hardin questions Tessa about the move. She explains that she didn't mention it earlier because she was unsure if Hardin would return. Tessa sees the move as a significant opportunity and had hoped Landon would join her. Hardin admits he wanted to go to London with her, but couldn't express it earlier. They agree to discuss it further later, as Tessa has to attend class. Returning home, Hardin calls his mother, Trish, who asks about Tessa's plans after hearing from Vance. Hardin feels increasingly frustrated, feeling out of the loop. Later, he goes to a club with Richard, where a confrontation arises after a man makes disrespectful comments about Tessa upon seeing a shared picture. Tessa receives a call from the bartender and rushes to pick them up. That night, Hardin apologizes to Tessa for the altercation, explaining that he lashed out because the man was insulting her. The following morning, Richard talks to Tessa, mentioning that he plans to leave the house since she's moving. Despite her efforts to persuade him to stay, Richard has already arranged transportation. Tessa gives him her phone number and urges him not to disappear again. After Richard leaves, a heated argument erupts between Hardin and Tessa. Hardin asks if she will send him away like she did with Richard, and Tessa clarifies that moving to Seattle is her lifelong dream. While she hopes Hardin will join her, he expresses concerns about not having much in Seattle besides her, which he deems insufficient. Tessa becomes upset, asserting that it's his problem and he can't prevent her from pursuing her dream. Later, Tessa visits Vance Publishing, where Kimberly offers her a place to stay when they relocate to Seattle. Kimberly also reveals that Vance has offered Hardin a flexible job in Seattle, but Hardin declined it. Tessa discusses the job offer with Hardin, who explains that he didn't want it and was unaware of her move at the time. They realize the need for better communication in their relationship. Subsequently, Tessa and Hardin spend a weekend at a lake house with Hardin's father, stepmother, and stepbrother. They enjoy their time, and Hardin bonds more with his stepfamily. Tessa confides in Landon about her doubts regarding the move, but he advises her to follow her dreams, believing that if Hardin truly loves her, he will find a way to be with her. During a dinner outing, Hardin reunites with his old friend Lillian, with whom he shares a strong connection, making Tessa somewhat jealous. Hardin leaves Tessa at the table to join Lillian. While Tessa is alone, a waiter named Robert flirts with her, prompting Hardin to return and stop the interaction. Later, at the lake house, Tessa and Hardin share a romantic moment alone in a hot tub. Hardin questions Tessa about moving to Seattle and if she ever had feelings for Trevor. Tessa admits she once did, upsetting Hardin. He leaves, saying he will go out with Lillian. Tessa then meets Robert, who invites her to join his group at the hotel. They chat casually, but when Hardin arrives with Lillian, Tessa chooses to stay. During their conversation, Tessa learns Lillian is a lesbian with a girlfriend, which surprises her. When Hardin suggests leaving, Tessa stays and later leaves with Robert, apologizing for any misunderstanding. Back home, Tessa finds Hardin unpacking and discovers Robert's phone number among her belongings. Hardin accuses Robert of having ulterior motives and believes Tessa is moving for a job Vance offered as a favor. A heated argument leads to them leaving the lake house and city. Hardin confides in Vance, who assures him Tessa earned the job on her own merit. When Hardin returns, he finds Tessa has left for Seattle and discovers her journal, revealing the pain their relationship caused her. In Seattle, Tessa establishes a routine, After a period of no contact, she calls Hardin. He initially hangs up due to a woman's voice in the background, but later calls back to explain it was his training instructor. Hardin and Tessa reconcile and begin communicating regularly. Tessa shares her pregnancy news with Kimberly and Vance, who are also expecting a baby. Meanwhile, Hardin has a disturbing dream about Tessa cheating on him with Robert, prompting him to visit Seattle. Tessa is surprised and delighted by his sudden arrival. After a brief greeting, they go to her room, where Hardin returns her journal and apologizes for reading it. They share a tender kiss, but decide not to keep Kimberly and Vance waiting. During dinner, Tessa expresses her concerns about their relationship to Kimberly, who reassures her that relationships can be complex, but believes they can overcome the challenges. In the middle of the night, Tessa wakes to find Hardin missing from the bed. She discovers him boxing in the gym and learns about his recurring doubts and troubling thoughts. Tessa reassures him of her commitment. The following morning, Hardin receives a call from his mother. While he steps aside to answer, Kimberly informs Tessa that his mother is getting married. When Tessa later brings up the topic, she tells Hardin that she understands if he doesn't want to take her with him. Hardin responds that he has no plans to go, but if he does, he'll take her along, promising to think about it. Hardin leaves Seattle and upon returning home, finds Richard there, battered and bruised. Richard explains he owes money to some people who beat him up. Hardin offers Richard his watch, advising him to sell it to pay off his debt. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Tessa visits the hospital for birth control, but is told by the doctor that she doesn't need it due to cervical issues making conception difficult. Hardin discusses transferring to Seattle with his dad, who suggests waiting until he graduates in 2 months to be part of his achievement. Hardin agrees and mentions his mom's upcoming wedding. His dad expresses confidence that she'll be happy with her future husband, Mike. Hardin attends an event hosted by Vance and confides in Tessa about his plans to move to Seattle. Later, he talks to Vance, who questions his absence at his mom's wedding. Hardin explains that he didn't want to involve Tessa in his old life by taking her to the wedding. Vance advises him to trust Tessa, as she doesn't make him feel bad about his past. Hardin and Tessa eventually attend the wedding. Tessa quickly becomes close to Trish, but Hardin keeps his distance. During the night, he can't sleep and goes to get water, only to catch his mom having intimate moments with Vance. Furious, he starts punching Vance until Tessa intervenes. Trish's wedding takes place the next day. At the event, Kimberly talks to Tessa and reveals she knows about Vance's cheating, but can't stay mad at him because she loves him. Meanwhile, Hardin goes to a bar with friends and discusses the previous night. Vance reveals to Hardin that he's his biological father, and Kimberly shares the same revelation with Tessa. Overwhelmed by this news, Hardin storms out, with Tessa following him. They meet in the middle of the road, hug, and share a passionate kiss. And that's also the final details of the movie. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Don't forget to give me a like and a subscription. Thank you, everyone.